After her husband boarded the plane and departed on a business trip, her son quietly remarked, "Mom, let's not go home today. Earlier, I overheard Dad planning something against us. We hid, and I was speechless seeing what truly happened. Before we continue, please tell me what country you are from and how old you are. Enjoy listening." Elena had never imagined that a routine business trip could mark a turning point, after which her life would no longer fall back into its familiar rhythm. It wasn't because of any dramatic sirens or flashing police lights outside her window. On the contrary, everything appeared entirely mundane. A suitcase by the door, keys on the nightstand, a brief peck on the cheek, the scent of coffee in the kitchen, and her husband's calm voice. "Just 2 days, don't go anywhere, all right? You and Sasha stay home? It makes me feel more at ease." Elena nodded automatically. After 14 years of marriage, such requests had become second nature. Andrei valued order. He liked to know where everything was and who was going where. He might call during lunchtime to inquire why Elena hadn't answered immediately. He might express displeasure that a woman should be at home, even though he himself was often absent, either at work or socializing with business associates. Elena had unlearned how to argue. She worked as an accountant, managed the household, raised their son, and strived to avoid conflict. Sasha that day also behaved quietly, sitting at the table poking at his porridge with a spoon, listening as his father listed tasks. "Feed the cat. Don't forget to lock the door. Don't open it for anyone." Andrei spoke calmly, but with that peculiar insistence that always made Elena a little uneasy. "Understood," she said, clearing the table. "Home, so home." "That's good. You're a good girl." Andrei smiled, perhaps a little too widely. "It's important to me that you're in the apartment, understand? Not at your mother's, not at a friend's place." Elena wanted to ask why it was so important, but the words caught in her throat. She didn't want to start the morning with an argument. Andrei was already growing impatient about the taxi, the time, the traffic. Elena simply nodded again. When the door closed behind her husband, the apartment suddenly seemed quieter. Sasha left for school. Elena went to work. The day unfolded as usual. Calls, numbers, reports, a brief chat with her boss. By evening, her head buzzed with fatigue, but at home, simple routines awaited. Dinner, homework, a shower. Elena picked Sasha up from the after-school program. The boy emerged wearing his jacket. His scarf was haphazardly tied, his face pale, his eyes unusually serious. "Cold?" Elena asked, adjusting his hat. "No." Sasha hesitated, then added, almost inaudibly, "Mom, let's not go home today." Elena didn't immediately grasp what "not going home" meant. Where then? To Aunt Olya's or Grandma's? Anywhere, just not home. Elena stopped right on the sidewalk. Passers-by navigated around them. Some hurried, others spoke on their phones. Sasha stood beside her, looking at his mother as if pleading not for ice cream, but for rescue. "Sasha, what happened?" Elena's voice softened. "Did someone upset you?" "No." "At school?" "No." Sasha swallowed. The words came with difficulty, but he persisted resolutely. "This morning, when I woke up, Dad thought I was still asleep. He was talking on the phone in the hallway. I heard everything." Elena felt a flicker of annoyance. Those conversations again. That anxiety again. But the annoyance quickly gave way to alarm, because Sasha wasn't making things up. He wasn't a fantasist. He might lie about a bad grade, but inventing an adult scenario like this was unlikely. "What did you hear?" Elena asked, taking his hand. Sasha glanced at the people around them and quietly requested, "Mom, let's step aside." They moved to a bench near the school, where grandmothers usually sat waiting for their grandchildren. The bench was empty now. Sasha sat down, placed his palms on his knees like an adult and said, "Dad was saying, the main thing is that they're home, and it's more reliable that way, and then they won't go anywhere." He continued, "Let it all look like an accident." Elena felt a tightness in her chest. The phrases were odd, not about work or a taxi or cargo and documents. Sasha spoke them with almost no emotion, like a dictation, and that made it even more frightening. "Are you sure he said that?" Elena asked, though she knew the answer. The boy remembered it word for word. Yes, he also said... Sasha paused, then exhaled. There was no need to explain anything to her son. He was too young anyway. Elena slowly straightened up. She felt an urge to call Andre immediately, to yell, to demand an explanation, but a call would achieve nothing. Andre was skilled with his words. He could twist them so that Elena ended up being the one at fault. You made it up. You're exaggerating. You scared the child. Sasha, Elena said softly, you were very brave to tell me. Let's go. Where? The boy asked, a flicker of hope in his voice. Elena herself didn't know exactly where, but she knew for sure, not home and not now. She called Aunt Olya, her older sister, who lived 2 bus stops away. Olya, can we pop by? Elena asked, as if discussing a trivial matter. For tea this evening? Of course. Is something wrong? Olga's tone became wary. I'll explain later. Elena hailed a taxi. Sasha sat beside her in the back seat, gripping the seatbelt tightly, silent. Elena looked out the window, trying to decipher what Andre might be planning, why it was so crucial for them to be home, and what accident meant. At Olga's, it was warm. Her sister met them at the door, immediately noticing the tension on Elena's face, and refrained from asking intrusive questions in front of the child. She poured tea, put out cookies, and let Sasha turn on cartoons in the other room. Once the door to the room was closed, Elena quietly recounted what her son had overheard. Olga paled. Do you think it's true? She asked. I don't know, Elena replied honestly. But Sasha doesn't lie. Olga silently retrieved valerian drops from a cabinet and placed them nearby. Did you call Andre? Not yet. Good, Olga said. We need to figure out what he's up to first. You're not going home tonight. Elena shook her head. We'll stay here tonight, and tomorrow? Elena pondered. Tomorrow I want to go home during the day. Just a quick look. Olga started to object, but Elena raised her hand. Not at night, not now, during the day, when it's light, and without him knowing. That evening, Andre called himself. His voice was calm, perhaps too calm. So, are you home? He asked. Elena felt her heart pound harder. She paused just long enough not to sound suspicious. Almost. We're on our way, she said, and immediately added, Sasha is tired. He's being fussy. Let's skip any outings. Andre said this gently, but there was an underlying steeliness. I need you to be in the apartment to understand. I understand, Elena replied. Excellent. I'll be in touch tomorrow. Good night. He disconnected so quickly, it was as if the conversation wasn't about family, but about a report. Elena put down her phone and looked at Olga. Did you hear? She asked quietly. I heard, her sister replied. Elena barely slept that night. Sasha drifted off quickly. A child's body, after all, has its own way, even when afraid. Elena lay on the sofa, listening to the sparse sounds of Olga's apartment, contemplating her life. She recalled how Andre had gradually changed, how his jokes had become crude, then he started to dictate, then he began to consider the money his own, even though Elena worked no less. How he could say, "Who needs you?" and then act as if nothing had happened. Elena wasn't prone to hysterics. She disliked dramatic scenes, she longed for peace, but now peace was eluding her. The next morning, Elena took Sasha to school, asked the teacher to keep him in the after-school program, and cautioned, Aunt Olya will pick him up for extra security. Then Elena went to work, operating on autopilot for half the day, citing feeling unwell, and left early. In her bag were her passport, keys, and a slim folder of apartment documents, just in case. Elena herself didn't know why she'd taken them, but her hand had reached for them. She approached the building cautiously, like someone unsure if it was truly their home. The entrance was familiar, smelling of paint and someone's soup. The landing was quiet, no unfamiliar voices. Elena inserted the key, the lock clicked, and the door opened. The apartment was impeccably tidy. Elena distinctly remembered a grocery receipt on the nightstand yesterday morning and Andre's jacket on the armchair. Now the nightstand was bare, the jacket gone, and the shoes in the hallway were neatly tucked away, not their usual state. Elena walked into the kitchen. The table was clean, the sink dry, and it smelled not of food, but of some cheap air freshener. She slowly moved to the bedroom. Everything there was also perfectly arranged. The bedspread was taut, the pillows fluffed. Andre didn't do that. Elena knew this. Her heart hammered in her ears. She wanted to leave immediately, close the door, and forget. But Elena forced herself to stay and search. She remembered Sasha's words. Dad had spoken in the hallway. This meant something was connected to documents. Elena opened the wardrobe where the folders of papers were kept. A shelf was slightly askew, as if recently moved. Elena crouched down, pulled out a shoebox that Andre inexplicably kept in the wardrobe. Inside were papers, not old receipts or warranty cards, as usual. There were printouts, neatly folded, with bookmarks. At the top, a page with a large heading, an application, a loan questionnaire. Below it, a substantial amount, a very substantial amount. Elena scanned it. A mortgage loan. Their apartment. Next, a printout with payment calculations. Then, someone's business card. A consultant. A bank. Following that, a draft of a power of attorney. Elena felt her fingers grow cold. She wasn't a lawyer, but she understood the core issue. Andre was preparing for a serious move, not buying a TV or doing repairs, but a loan against the apartment. Elena pulled out the next sheet. In Andre's simple handwriting, it read, "Sign when they are home. Don't give them time to read. Say it's urgent for the business trip. Sasha, keep him in his room. Main thing is BT, quickly." Elena read it twice, then a third time. The meaning remained unchanged. Her husband planned to force her to sign papers without giving her time to comprehend them, and it was crucial for him that both Elena and the child be home so she wouldn't run off, call anyone, or take time to think. Elena slowly closed the box, but immediately reopened it and took out her phone. She photographed all the pages, all the notes, the business card. She did it quickly, her hands trembling. Then Elena stood up and looked around. She needed to act not on emotion, not to run screaming through the courtyard, not to create a scene over the phone. She needed to protect her child and herself. Elena called Olga. "Olya," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I found the papers. He intended to take out a loan against the apartment and force me to sign." Olga was silent for a second, then quietly asked, "Where are you now?" "Home." "Alone. You're alone. Get out of there," Olga said. "Right now. Close the door and leave. Take the folder, take your documents, and come here." Elena took the folder with the apartment documents from the wardrobe, took the box of Andre's papers entirely so nothing would disappear, threw on her jacket, and left. On the landing, Elena paused and realized she wouldn't simply return home. There was no longer any safety here. At Olga's, Elena sat in the kitchen, placed the box on the table, and remained silent for a long time. Olga poured water. "Do you understand what this is?" her sister asked. "I understand," Elena replied. "He wanted to plunge us into debt, and if I couldn't pay, we'd lose the apartment." Olga pressed her lips together. "And now?" Elena looked at the box as if it held not paper, but someone else's life. "Now, I won't give him that opportunity." Olga called a friend who worked as a family lawyer. She offered straightforward advice. If the apartment is registered in Elena's name and was acquired before the marriage, that's one situation. If it was acquired during the marriage, it's another. But in any case, signing without reading was the most dangerous point, and if there was evidence of coercion, it was best to preserve it. Elena didn't want to turn this into a war. She wished Andre would simply stop, but she understood that a person who explicitly writes, "Don't give time to read," wouldn't be deterred by a request. Towards evening, Andre called again. "So, how was your day?" he asked cheerfully. "Everything all right at home?" Elena inhaled and replied calmly, "Normal. Where's Sasha?" "At the after-school program." "Pick him up and come home," Andre instructed. "You need to be home today. Understood?" Elena remained silent for a second, then quietly said, "We won't be home today." A pause hung in the air. Then Andre's voice changed, becoming lower and harsher. "What do you mean, not home?" "It means we're staying at Olga's," Elena replied. Why? Andrei spoke slowly, as if choosing his words carefully. I asked you not to. I know, Elena said. Elena, don't start this. Take the child and go home. No. Elena herself was surprised at how calmly that no sounded. There was no hysteria, only a statement of fact. Are you serious? Andrei faltered, his tone abruptly shifting. All right, we'll talk tomorrow. You're worked up now. Just do as I said. We'll talk tomorrow, Elena repeated. Andrei hung up. The night was difficult. Elena lay awake, thinking about tomorrow. Sasha, as he was falling asleep, quietly asked, Mom, did I do the right thing by telling you? Elena stroked her son's head. Yes, you saved us, and I'm proud of you. The next morning, Andrei called again. This time, he wasn't shouting. His tone was almost affectionate. Len, let's not be silly. Come home. We need to talk. We'll talk, Elena agreed. But not at home. Then where? Andrei's voice grew irritated. At a cafe during the day, without Sasha. Why make a scene? Andrei grumbled. It's not a scene, Elena said calmly. It's necessary. They met at a small cafe near the metro. Elena arrived early, sat by the window, her bag containing photos of the documents and that specific paper with notes. Her hands no longer trembled. Inside there was a strange calm, like before a lengthy surgery, scary but clear. Andrei entered confidently, sat opposite her, and appraised Elena as if assessing damage. What was that? He asked immediately. Why were you out all night? What did you do? Elena didn't answer right away, asked for tea, and waited for the waitress to leave. Sasha heard your conversation, Elena said quietly. Andrei's face twitched for a second, but he quickly regained composure. Sasha, he misunderstood something. Children always misunderstand things. He understood correctly, Elena said. You said we had to be home, that it was more reliable, that we wouldn't go anywhere. Andrei clenched his jaw. So what? I'm the father. I have the right to know where my child is. You do, Elena agreed. And you also have a habit of deciding for everyone. Yesterday, I found papers in the wardrobe. Elena took the sheet with his notes from her bag and placed it on the table, not throwing it, not slamming it down, just placing it, like submitting a bill in accounting. Andrei looked, and his face turned paler. That's not what... he began. Sign, don't give them time to read. Elena read calmly, meeting his eyes. Is this yours? Andrei was silent, then attempted a smirk. What are you talking about? It's a draft. I wanted to take out a loan for business. We would have paid it back later. You understand? I understand, Elena said. You wanted to take out a loan against the apartment and have me sign it without reading. You always make a drama out of everything. Andrei raised his voice. Several people in the cafe turned their heads. I'm doing this for the family. Elena didn't raise her voice. She didn't want to argue. She understood everything now. People work for their families differently, Elena said. For the family, you explain. You ask for consent. You don't write. Don't give time to read. Andrei leaned forward abruptly. You think you're smart? Think you can manage alone? Who needs you with a child? Elena had heard this phrase before, and before it had stung her. Today, it didn't. My son needs me, Elena said, and I need myself. Andrei leaned back in his chair as if realizing the conversation was going nowhere. Then he made a move Elena expected. You're complicating things. Come home. We'll talk properly. The documents are there. Your things are there. Elena calmly interrupted. I won't be coming home. At least not until you sort out what you intended to do and until I'm sure Sasha is safe. Andrei started to say something, but Elena raised her hand. From now on it will be like this, she said evenly, point by point as she was accustomed to at work. Sasha will live with me for now. He'll go to school as usual. He can see you, but only when I'm present. And no urgent signatures, no papers. If you want a divorce, fine, but you won't drag us into debt. Andrei looked at Elena as if seeing her for the first time. He seemed to struggle to accept that his quiet wife wasn't crying, wasn't making excuses, wasn't pleading. You ruined everything, he finally said, his voice hollow. No, Andre, Elena replied. You ruined it. I just stopped pretending nothing was happening. Elena stood up. For a second she felt a pang of fear, not for herself, but for what would happen next. But fear didn't stop her. Don't do anything stupid, Andre called after her. Elena turned. Stupid. That would have been going home and signing silently. She walked out of the cafe and felt, for the first time in a long time, that she could breathe properly. Everything that followed happened without grand drama. Andre didn't repent immediately, nor did Elena transform into a different woman overnight. She simply took one step at a time. She picked Sasha up from school, explained to the teacher that for a while only she or Aunt Olya would pick him up. Andre tried to exert pressure, sending messages, sometimes begging, sometimes threatening, sometimes accusing, then suddenly saying he'd changed his mind and hadn't wanted anything. Elena saved the correspondence and replied briefly, without unnecessary conversation. Sasha asked a couple of times, Is Dad bad now? Elena didn't tell her son his father was bad. She didn't want to break the child. She said it differently. Dad made a bad choice, and we are choosing safety. A few days later, Andre finally came to Olga's, stood outside the door, rang the bell, asking to come out and talk. Olga opened the door, but didn't let him in. Elena came out into the hallway. Andre looked tired. His eyes were red, his face angry, but the anger lacked its former confidence. Are you happy now? He asked. Elena looked at him calmly. I would be happy if you hadn't done what you did, she replied. Andre swallowed. I wanted to do what was best. It was business. I was under pressure. I would have found a way out. And you? You wanted to get out at my expense, Elena said. Andre started to object, but Elena continued, and at the child's expense too, because you needed Sasha to be home and not understand anything. I won't forget that. For a second, Andre lowered his eyes, then quietly asked, Are you really leaving? I already have, Elena replied. At that moment, Sasha peeked out of the room, saw his father, and froze. Andre reached out to his son, but hesitantly. Sasha didn't run, didn't rush to him. He just stood and looked. Elena moved closer to her son, not completely shielding him, but making it clear she was there. Hi, Andre said quietly. Hi, Sasha replied. Andre wanted to say something important, but the words wouldn't come. Sasha suddenly asked, very childishly and directly, Dad, did you want Mom to sign the paper without reading it? Andre paled. Elena hadn't expected this question, but she didn't stop her son. The child had the right to speak. Who told you? Andre looked at Elena accusingly. Nobody, Sasha said. I heard. Andre was silent for a long time, then exhaled. I made a mistake. These were the first honest words in the whole affair. Elena didn't scold, didn't pressure, only said, Mistakes are corrected by actions, not by words. Andre left. Without slamming the door or shouting, he simply left, like someone who had suddenly realized his usual levers no longer worked. Elena didn't feel joy. She felt bitterness. She remembered how they used to laugh in the kitchen, how Andre would hold Sasha, how he promised he would always be there, and how all of it turned out to be not a shield, but a trap. But along with the bitterness came another feeling, self-respect. Elena saw that she could act calmly without shouting and still protect herself. After some time, Andre finally admitted that the loan was real. He tried to justify himself, saying he was under pressure, that he hadn't meant any harm. Elena listened and understood that even if he truly was under pressure, an honest person wouldn't write, "Don't give time to read." An honest person would say, "We're having a hard time. Let's figure it out together." Andre chose differently. The story didn't end with a fairy tale. Andre didn't transform into the ideal husband after one conversation. Elena didn't become richer, nor did she find sudden happiness. She simply began to live without the fear she hadn't even noticed before. Sasha also changed. He became calmer, stopped flinching at sudden phone calls, stopped waking up at night to listen to the hallway. When a child understands that Mom is near and hears her, anxiety recedes. One evening, Elena sat by the window at Olga's, watching the rain fall below. Olga approached and placed a mug of tea on the table. "You're holding up," her sister said. "Because I had to," Elena replied. Olga paused, then asked, "The worst part is the paperwork." Elena shook her head. The truly terrifying thing was that he intended to do it in front of the child, so Sasha would be in the room, clueless, and we would both be trapped at home, unable to escape. That's the absolute worst. Olga sighed. But at least you trusted your son. Elena glanced towards the room where Sasha was building with his blocks, humming softly. "Yes," Elena affirmed, "and that's probably the one thing I did right. Sometimes life doesn't demand grand gestures. It doesn't call for resounding pronouncements or storybook endings. Sometimes all that's needed is a single act to heed a child's whispered plea. 'Mom, we can't go home.' And to take a step back before disaster even crosses the threshold. Because danger often doesn't present itself as a villain in a dark coat. It appears as a familiar face, smiling in the morning and saying, 'It's important to me that you stay home.' M.